Who's going to the morning? Well, first of all, welcome. I'm excited to be here. We work with a lot of different companies in a lot of different sectors, and mobile is one of the most interesting areas for us because it's an area that I think, as all of us agree, we all kind of touch and see and feel every day. It's something that my daughter understands every time she tries to repossess my iPhone, etc. So it's something I think that we all see, and I think the trend that we're all understanding and kind of realizing is it's getting big. And I guess the question for us today, we've got a tremendous group of people to help answer it, is, well, what do we do about it? How do we start businesses around it? And who's going to help invest in those? But first, I think what would be really helpful for the panelists is if we could find out who we have here. My guess is we have a lot of people who are either entrepreneurs or are in the steps of becoming an entrepreneur. Can I get a raise of hands? Is that who we kind of got here? All right, good. Investors? Couple? Good. All right, great. All right. Why don't we start by introducing the panel? As I said, we have a tremendous group here. So perhaps each of us could just say a quick word about who we are, who we represent, and what we're doing. So Lars?
Good afternoon. Lars Leckie with Hummer Windblad Venture Partners. We're a 20-plus-year-old venture firm based here in San Francisco. We invest exclusively in the software category. We're probably best known for a deal we did with, she'll introduce herself in a minute, Omniture, which was an IPO and an acquisition by Adobe quite recently. We're about a $200 million fund, our current fund, and we focus on seed, Series A, so first institutional money into software companies. That's the sweet spot we're looking for. And I'll talk a little more about the mobile side.
Perfect. Thanks, Brooke.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Brooke Wessel. I'm a T-Venture, which is Deutsche Telekom's corporate venture capital group. And we have 5 funds underneath our management. I'm on the mobile fund. I work closely with the online fund, as you would imagine. And I'm based in Seattle, and we have an office here in San Francisco with both other companies over down the coast.
Hi, I'm Sharon Weinbar. I'm a partner at Scale Venture Partners. We specialize in helping our companies scale. So we're a mid and later stage fund. So when you've got a product in the market, early traction up through late stage with customers. Have been active in mobile since about 2004 was actually our big year. The first year of mobile. Some of the companies involved with Blue Mobile, Playphone, M-Blocks, Waveport, and a couple others.
My name is Richard Yen. I'm with Savant Capital Group. We're a growth equity firm based out of Los Angeles. We focus pretty broadly in the digital media, mobile, and consumer internet areas. Look to make investments in companies generating revenue. We have strong media ties. Our founder, Haim Saban, is a multi-billionaire who made his money through the media industry. Whether it's television networks, movie studios, ad agencies, and talent agencies, have a pretty strong linkage there, and have been spending a lot of time in the mobile space. We see that as certainly one of the big areas to generate new media properties, and it's a major distribution channel going forward.
So maybe we could just start by thinking kind of more broadly and on the macro level. I've been forwarded a number of reports that talk to the size, the amount of investment that's occurring in the mobile sector, the wireless sector in the last couple of quarters. I think everyone agrees it's increasing. Also, generally from a market perspective, obviously it's a tremendous area. I think an area that's getting a lot of focus. Maybe Lars, from your perspective, why the interest in mobile? What do you see at a macro level kind of for the market right now?
So I think mobile has been an interesting place where I think for a long time we called, at least at our firm, we called it a bit of the matrix of pain, where you had this sort of difficult world where you're living between carriers and handset manufacturers and screen, various operating systems, and it sort of meant that to develop on mobile, you had this sort of proliferation of platform problem, and you're always sort of racing to try and bet on that. And I think the iPhone this is fairly obvious, but the iPhone and then Android has really changed that dynamic. So right now, I view where we are in the mobile industry as sort of getting past that, and we're in what I would call the equivalent of sort of where the web was in maybe 96, 97. So we're sort of in this beginning ramp up, and the craziness is just about to start. That's sort of how I view the mobile space right now.
Others, thoughts on that? Or given that, given the strength of the sector, from an investment perspective, I think a lot of folks here are wondering, where is it that we should be focusing? This is obviously a huge sector. There's a lot of different places that we can think about. itself take an entire session. For maybe for each of you, as you're looking at business plans, as you're thinking about strategizing into the future, on the blackboards with your partners, where are you trying to focus your thought processes, your investments, et cetera, your time today? Maybe we can just each talk to kind of how, maybe even the process you're going through right now to kind of write those decisions.
Sure, I'll comment on Deutsche Telekom's company and how we try to align our investments with the operating units. On the mobile side anyway, there's two ways we look at it. One is foremost in the core optimization of the network costs and things like that. So we look at companies that can bring real value to our operating costs and make it more profitable. On the other side, we look at application services and new businesses that are going to drive scale in our existing core business. And so we're constantly torn between those two different opportunity thresholds or domains and looking at opportunities and trying to find some that cross the boundaries between them.
Yeah, I'll say, we look at it in kind of two different levels. The first is, as Lars said, the opportunity is very large because now you have this incredible amount of computing power, in your hand and always on connectivity. So you can kind of divide the kinds of content and media and marketing types for mobile are very similar to what you're seeing on the web. So there's, premium content and user-generated content, different connectivity, things like that. One thing that I'd say that I think is actually where I would have a point of difference with you is the rise of fragmentation has come back quite a lot in 2010, and it's actually quite similar to where it was in 2004. So 2004 was interesting because it was the first year that there were 10 million handsets with multimedia processors, and that really did enable multimedia content to be consumed on handsets, on Java and Brew handsets, and that was primarily games. And it was very fragmented form factor and area interface that they had to be delivered against. And that has come back. So it went away for a while when iPhone was the dominant smartphone platform, and now that you have iPhone, Android, Palm, now WinPhone, etc., plus mobile web, and so many different shapes of what a mobile device is. A mobile device is no longer just candy bar or flip phone. It can be all these different shapes. It's brought back a whole bunch of other infrastructure issues that either those companies that are operating at the content layer have to deal with, or provide investment opportunities at some of those lower levels. So that's one of the ways we think about it. The other part of the market that has been a complete no man's land for venture investing since the crash of bubble 1.0, so kind of 2000 era, has been network infrastructure, where you had all these companies that made money early in the internet bubble, right, selling to Cisco, and then as Nortel and Cisco and those guys got in big price wars and they crushed all the startups, it was just death. And then now there are new network, and you're probably better to talk about this, but network operator problems that aren't being solved by the incumbent either equipment providers or software providers like the Amdocs, where you're seeing startups get traction with doing things like metered billing, payments, different stuff that happens in the network that enables all these new business models that are happening on the handsets. And so that's been an area of renewed investment interest and a place where we actually have people focusing on looking into this.
Yeah, and at Saban, so our focus within mobile is certainly consumer software and services, given the firm's background. And the two areas that we're spending a lot of time, one is mobile gaming, the second is location-based services. And we think gaming is extremely interesting just given the amount of horsepower that you have on your cell phone these days, on your smartphone. It's just tremendously compelling. And also, we think gaming is moving more from hardcore to more casual, just play for 5 minutes at a time. And mobile's perfect for that. You're standing in line, pull out your Angry Birds app, and fool around, throw some stones. It's perfect. I think that fits into what makes mobile special. It's always with you. It's convenient, and you can just fire it up. On the location-based services side, we think there's tremendous power related to that because it's, again, you're out and about, you're not sitting at your desk, and can interesting services be provided to you based on where you are and where you're headed. We're an investor in a company called Give in Southern California that is trying to help retailers drive traffic to their stores. And so, basically, if Starbucks wants to offer you, buy a latte, get one free, then if you're depending on where you're standing, maybe there's an opportunity to help promote that. So basically, there's just a huge opportunity, we think,
Richard, I thought you brought up some great ideas, if I could just hold on that for a minute. One was, you raised gaming, which is something I thought we should talk about a little bit as well. You know, for me, so I actually see a lot of business plans as well. We get a lot of people that want to send us their company information to see if we think, you know, it's something that some of the investors like you would want to take a look at. And a lot of what we see in mobile are applications, right? So, you know, the guy in the college dorm who writes a cool little app that does something that's different than any other app out there. And similarly, you know, a neat game that seems very social or seems very, very quick to take off. But are these, in each of your views, companies that you would look at from an investment perspective? Or I mean, where can entrepreneurs focus in kind of the gaming world that would kind of ring a bell for each of you?
I mean, from our perspective, we think gaming can be companies, and you can. A lot of it is having a breadth of applications where you have enough diversity that there's an opportunity to have larger hits. And so I think a single standalone app is more difficult. I think if you have a suite of applications that can cross-promote, and then you have a platform on which to grow other mobile apps, I think that becomes interesting. I think at Saban we also have a different perspective because we think of mobile gaming as a form of creating new IP. And because the smartphones they're so rich in terms of what you're able to do in terms of the applications, it's an inexpensive way to test out new concepts that you can take to other forms of media. So, Angry Birds is a fantastic game. It's #1. Everybody loves it. But, is it a one-trick pony? Don't know. But they're actually diversifying it very well by selling stuffed animals. And they're talking reportedly to Hollywood about movies and television shows. And it's pretty amazing. I mean, they tossed a game out there for, who knows how much they made it for. Not an outrageous amount of money, pretty low amount of money, and now all of a sudden you have a huge franchise. And so I think that's how we think about mobile gaming. It's an opportunity to test out new franchises as opposed to spending quite a bit of money on television or otherwise.
They had a great run on Halloween costumes, I understand. Angry Bird Halloween costumes. And how much money they made.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's right that, a single title game, sticking with games as opposed to apps, a single title rarely makes a company. So it can make an interesting return opportunity for an individual or for angel investors, but when you're really talking at the level of venture investing, typically the company has to be pursuing a multi-title strategy, which means you have to have something that's sitting below the title level that says, I have a better chance of releasing more good titles and being successful that way, knowing that some of them are going to fail and some of them are going to be successful. But in particular, because, and especially on Apple, because the rules of how games and how titles float up into the leaderboards, the rankings, it really reinforces large companies staying large and getting larger, and it makes it increasingly more difficult for single title companies to get traction, because if you already have an audience in your existing game, you can market your new game titles to it, force it up into the rankings, where it will then naturally attract other downloads, and it will stay there and you'll be able to make money. But if you don't have an audience to which you can market your thing, then you have to pay money to people like Tapjoy and whoever the guys who are going to be on one of the next panels to get up there, and and so that takes capital, which means you probably have to be a venture-backed company. So it is actually very strongly favoring a platform publishing model as a game distribution.
And if I could just ask on, you say there's got to be something beneath that level that indicates there's going to be repeats there. And what is that? Is it a team? Is it,
Right, I think you can fall in, there's two kinds of things that can fall into. One is you've got some kind of technology, right? You've got like really great game engine, 3D rendering, maybe it's cross-platform publishing, because that's become important. There are very few games that are actually popular on both iPhone and Android. So there's some kind of technical layer thing. Or you can be somebody like, to use a web example, like PopCap. They're just, they're really good game developers. They come out with a new franchise